parents had their first child. So that sort of disrupted her training. Um, I was born 4 years later, so my parents had this notion, which was very popular till fairly recently, that you need to space your children, 4 or 5 years apart. And nowadays, young couples think quite differently. They say, have all your children, quickly so that you can get on with life. But my parents we were spaced 4 to 5 years apart, which effectively meant that for 15 years, there was a little child in the house. I mean, having been a mother myself, I can just imagine how difficult that must have been, not just for my mother, but for millions of mothers. But still she did, at various points of time, she was able to revive her interest in music. She was able to, again, take training. So when she was in Delhi, she used to go to Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, or she took classes from Shanti Hiranand, who was who is a former student of Begum Akhtar. In Bombay, again, my mother was taking classes from some very sort of established singers. So from time to time, she has revived, but she has never achieved continuity. So yes, I do agree that, I think having, being a wife, being a mother, being married to somebody who was moving every 4 or 5 years, they didn't stay anywhere for long. Uh, it, it, uh, it hampered her, developing her musical talents. But I definitely do see, I mean, she is 76, but she still sings. She sings for herself. She has a couple of friends who get together and they sing every week. Sometimes if there's a, particular event in a friend's house, she will sing there. So her enjoyment of music has not changed at all. It's just that her talent, she could not develop it professionally. And that is a pity. And I think that happens to a lot of women, uh, who do not find ways to balance family and profession.
Did she ever sing for your father?
Yeah, she's been singing
She did.
for, yeah, she's, a very outgoing person. She not at all self-conscious, not at all shy. She's happy to sing. Yeah.
She's outgoing in every way. The way she has entertained, the way she would pick gifts for dignitaries, everything. I think she really took charge in many
Actually, my
ways.
mother is really the most sociable member of our family.
Yeah.
She just loves meeting people. And whether it is, I have seen that, uh, it, she has absolutely no sense of discrimination. Whether somebody is an important person or an unimportant person, whether somebody is rich or poor, religion, caste, class, these things are totally meaningless for her. In fact, once I told her that if I introduce you to a beggar and a king, you will probably talk to both of them with the same interest, with the same respect. She just does not distinguish between people. She finds every individual interesting and worth talking to. She wants to know their story. She gets involved in people's lives very, very easily, which is something we always scold her for. You've got to stay out sometimes. Don't get involved with everybody you meet, but she does.
Just a brief question about the Planning Commission, because this is something that your father was so involved in. And now that it has fallen apart, what are his views on it now? It doesn't come out obviously in the book because it is only recently that they have uh, substituted the Planning Commission with something called the Niti Aayog.
Well, I don't know what his views are now, but while I was working on the book, he does talk. I mean, I do ask him, what's so what's so important about the planning commission? What do you value in having a planning commission? So I can tell you that. I think, you see, I think he played a very major role in the planning, in drafting the 6th five-year plan, as well as the 7th five-year planning. So um, what he did say is that uh, having a plan allows you to have a long-term perspective. You know, when you're in a ministry, when you're in some department, you're sort of working day to day. You can't develop a long-term view. So when you're in the planning commission, since you're not involved in day-to-day management, it allows you to think ahead. You know, not just 5 years ahead. I think while he was in the 6th plan, they were actually even talking about 10 years ahead, 15 years ahead. So basically, your thinking is long term. So that's one thing. I think the other thing is that it allows you to balance, to achieve a certain balance between sectors, you know, between social sectors, between industry, between infrastructure and other sectors in the economy. Because if you have an overall view, then there's a balance. Again, then you achieve a coordination between what's happening in the center and what's happening in the states, because there's a lot of freedom in every state to do, you know, to design and implement programs as you wish. But if you want the country as a whole to move forward, then there must be some elements which are common. So the planning process allows that coordination between the center and the states. And then, of course, even the Planning Commission allocates resources between ministries. Now, obviously, every ministry is going to fight to get the maximum resources for itself. So you need somebody to be the sort of referee to say, okay, well, this is how much we have, and this is how much you get, and this is how much you get. And without that sort of planning exercise, my father said that a lot of loose spending happens. There's a lot of ad hocism. If you don't have a fixed budget that has been given to you, that, you know, this is your budget and you have to work within it. If you don't have that, then people's ability to spend money wisely becomes seriously affected. So this is how he felt, in his experience, these were the benefits of planning.
Daman, I think, as they say on television, we're almost out of time, but there are a few people, I think, in the audience who might like to ask you a few questions. Is there anyone here? There are several hands going up, so we'll take them one by one. And a quick question, please, rather than an observation.
In your book, can you hear me? In your book, in the chapter 1984, you actually bring out the fact that your family was also affected by the 1984 riots. So my question is, later on when your father joined politics, was he comfortable, you know, having colleagues who were actually accused of being a part of those riots?
It's not comfortable. I wish I had a good answer for that. I think he was not comfortable with a lot of things, being prime minister. But I think what he tried to do is to keep the larger picture in front of him, and somehow ignore all the uncomfortable, all the irritating issues, you know, which weren't part of the larger picture. So there was this issue that, yes, there are individuals who were accused, although never convicted, of having taken part in the riots of 1984. And this was a source of, I think, great concern. And I mean, it not just to him, but to many, many, many people. Um, but the fact that the legal system had failed to convict anybody, you know, what do you do then? So, in this particular matter, I think he really had very little choice. Still, it's a good question.
Thank you very much for asking that. Yes, please.
Good afternoon, ma'am. My question to you is that, when we read personal narratives, we readers, we are generally wary of biased accounts, patronizing attitude from the writer. So, ma'am, at the end of the day, you are a daughter writing about your father. So, was that a particular concern that, I have to refrain from sounding eulogizing, or, I have to give a true account, or did this never become an issue, or like, was it just straight from your heart, straight as it is?
No, I absolutely was determined not to write a book that was singing the praises of my parents, a syrupy, sentimental, oh, they are so wonderful kind of book. What I've tried to do is I've tried to tell the story in as understated and yeah, as understated and as dispassionate way as I can. But I can't help the fact that I am their daughter, and I'm not going to hide that. So the book is an affectionate book. It is I think the overall quality of it is a positive book. But at the same time, I have not treated them like gods. I have not put them up on a pedestal. I have written about them as people, as ordinary people, So I have written about their achievements, I have written about their failures, I have written about their strengths, I have also written about their weaknesses. But I feel that it's my job to describe. It's your job as a reader to decide, was this good or was it bad? Was it positive or was it negative? So I don't want to be the one who is judging. But as a reader, every reader has the right to judge. But I felt that as a writer, I don't have the right to judge. And also as a daughter, I don't have the right to judge my parents.
Okay, thank you so much.
We have time for just two more questions. So, but there are lots of hands going up. I think we can, you can meet Daman Singh afterwards because we must get along with all the others, the other sessions. So just two more questions, please.
Yeah, just interested to know, why did you not cover the years for the tenure when he was the Prime Minister? Because the book actually chronicles the challenges he faced through his life. And I would have thought the last 10 years would have been the most challenging. So, or is there a sequel in the making, or?
Well, the next 10 years, 10 years is a really long time. Actually, when I wrote about the time he was finance minister, I was actually writing about one issue. It was about economic reforms, and there are 3 chapters on it, different aspects. Now, if I was to write about his years as prime minister, there are at least 20 major issues. And I felt that I could not do it justice. And also, I feel that I may not be the best person to write about those issues. I think there are other people, other writers who are more qualified and who will do a better job of, because uh, it's not just their political issues, their economic issues, their social issues, their administrative issues. I mean, maybe I could do it, but it would take me 10 years. So I'm sure there are better qualified people who should do this.
And one last question.
Ma'am, good afternoon. This is more to a daughter than an author. How does a man who's worked some 16 hours every day, including Sundays, moved cities every 4 or 5 years, now deal with retired life?
I think the first few months he was just so exhausted uh, of being a sort of the prisoner of a routine. So the first few months, it was just freedom, freedom to, do what you want with your day. You don't have a schedule drawn up for you. After that, I think maybe about 3 months later, he started meeting people again, So he meets a lot of people now. And, earlier he simply didn't have time to meet people unless it was something really important or urgent. So even his own friends used to say, oh, well, we won't bother you, we'll go and meet Gursharanji, carry on with your work, etc. So now the friends are coming back again. So that's been a really nice thing. And apart from that, a lot of people just write to him, strangers, and say we would like to talk about XYZ, or they want to tell him about their work. And he's meeting a lot of people in that sense. And he's reading a lot. That's again, earlier what would happen was he would pick up a book and somebody would flag a few pages for him because he just never had the time to read from, the beginning to the end. Now he picks up a book, he can actually read it. And hopefully he will write something.